All right, so you're here for the news, and we've got a lot to cover today, from a bill in Massachusetts to even discussions about race and gender and even yaoi manga. So are you ready to get informed?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
Okay, great. So first up is this proposed bill in Massachusetts that would allow incarcerated people to reduce their sentences by donating organs or bone marrow.
Yeah, this is one that's definitely raising some eyebrows.
It really does, because is it a humane response, right, to the organ shortage, or is it potentially exploiting a vulnerable population?
Yeah, and how much can we really say that there is consent in this situation?
Right, because if someone's behind bars, can I really make a free choice? And then that also leads into, what are the implications for the entire organ transplant system?
Right. Are we moving towards a place where organ donation is less about altruism and more about a transactional system?
Exactly. And what does that say about us as a society?
Yeah, what are our values? How do we balance the weight of a life saved with the principles of justice?
Right. Okay, so moving on, we've got some sources looking at opposition research in politics.
Ah, yeah, this is a fascinating one.
It is, because it really does raise its own ethical questions.
It does. I mean, on the one hand, it's like investigating your opponents is just part of the game, right?
Right, it's politics.
But where's that line?
Exactly. Where is the line between legitimate scrutiny and just straight up smear tactics?
Yeah, how does opposition research impact public trust and how does it impact the tone of political discourse?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? It's not just about uncovering the truth, but also how that information is being used.
Right. Could it be used to manipulate?
Exactly. And there's another layer here, too, and that is the responsibility of journalists and media outlets to vet the information that they're receiving
Oh,
from
yeah.
these research firms.
Especially in this age of misinformation, that verification process is more crucial than ever.
Right? It makes you really wonder, how much of what we're reading is actually true. Okay. Switching gears to a topic that's causing a lot of debate online, this incident with the American YouTuber Armin Wiggins, who used the term uppity Africans to describe this South African singer.
This incident, as the APA blog points out, is a prime example of how powerful language can be
Right?
and how important it is to understand the historical and cultural context behind the words that we use.
Right, because terms like that, especially directed at people of color, they carry a lot of baggage.
Exactly. They can perpetuate some really harmful stereotypes.
Yeah, so it seems like, this is a classic example of how a word can mean very different things to different people.
And different cultures.
Different cultures, exactly. And it emphasizes the need for cultural sensitivity and awareness.
Absolutely. We need to be more aware of how our words can impact others.
Yeah, okay, so on totally different note, there's this article in Aesthetics for Birds that I thought was interesting.
Okay.
It encourages women to rethink their love of yaoi manga, which focuses on romantic relationships between men,
Right.
but is largely created by and for women.
So what's interesting here is this question of representation.
Right.
Why are women drawn to a genre that oftentimes excludes them from its own narrative?
Right, and the article explores a bunch of possible explanations, including the appeal of exploring fantasies and desires that might be considered taboo in other contexts.
Interesting.
So it kind of makes you think about, the role of fantasy in shaping our perceptions of relationships and identity.
Right. Do these fictional narratives provide an escape from societal norms, or are they actually reinforcing certain power dynamics?
Right, even unintentionally. Okay, so switching back to the news, the State Department just froze funding for refugee resettlement programs,
Oh, wow.
which is a move that's sparking a lot of controversy.
It is. And the immediate consequence, of course, is disruption.
Right?
There are layoffs. Organizations like Catholic Charities are really struggling to provide services. And there's a lot of uncertainty for refugees who are just trying to build new lives.
And the USCCB has even filed a lawsuit arguing that this funding freeze is not only unlawful, but it's also preventing them from fulfilling their moral and legal obligations to care for refugees.
Right.
So this situation, it goes way beyond just these immediate practical challenges.
It does.
It reflects this ongoing debate, right, about immigration
Yeah.
and America's role in providing refuge for people fleeing persecution.
What does it mean to be a welcoming nation?
Exactly. And how do we balance competing priorities in a world that's facing all these really complex humanitarian crises?
Okay, so speaking of complex challenges, let's go to a place where science fiction is starting to become reality.
Okay.
Space mining.
Wow.
We've got sources looking at all the technological advancements that are happening and the potential to extract resources from asteroids and the moon.
It's like something straight out of a movie.
It is.
It's incredible to think that we might be on the verge of this whole new source of resources.
Right? But it does make you wonder about the ethical and legal implications.
Huge, right? Who owns those resources?
Exactly. And how do we prevent environmental damage, and how do we make sure that it benefits all of humanity?
That's a big one.
These are big questions, and the sources don't shy away from them.
That's good.
We're moving into uncharted territory, and we need to proceed with caution
Right.
and with a clear understanding of what the consequences could be.
It's a reminder that every time there's a technological leap forward, we get a new set of ethical dilemmas.
Right.
Okay, so speaking of leaps, let's come back down to earth and talk about something that's a little more down to earth.
Okay.
Super Bowl ads.
Uh,
One ad really stood out this year, the Pfizer commercial.
oh, yeah, the one highlighting their work on cancer?
Yeah,
It's interesting how something like a Super Bowl ad
Right.
can spark such deep reflection.
it is.
You know, the sources explore this idea that advertising, when it's done well, can actually inspire change.
Yeah,
And this ad used storytelling and emotion to really connect with people and raise awareness about the fight against cancer.
so it makes you think about the power of storytelling to shape public perception
Huge.
and even drive scientific progress. I mean, if a Super Bowl ad can get people talking about cancer research,
Right.
what other unexpected avenues are there to engage people in these important issues?
That's a great question. It shows that even in lighthearted moments,
Right.
there can be opportunities for reflection.
Okay, so before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I want to go back to this story from the blogger about his father saying you weren't even thought of yet.
Oh, yeah. I love that line. It's great.
It's great, it's funny,
It is.
but it really makes you think about the passage of time
Yeah.
and how vast history is.
It does. It makes you think about where we fit in.
Right, we're just a small part of this much bigger story.
Right.
It's humbling.
It is.
It also makes you think about legacy,
Oh, yeah.
what we leave behind,
And how our actions impact others.
right, in ways that we might not even fully understand.
Exactly. It's all interconnected.
It is. So there you have it. That's part one of our deep dive into today's news, and we've covered a lot, but we've got more to come.
We do. We'll be back with part 2, where we're going to unpack some really thought-provoking quotes from ancient philosophers.
Oh, that's going to be good.
And we'll look closer at the ethical complexities of the digital age.
Ooh, can't wait, so stay tuned.
Welcome back. So let's switch gears for a bit and look at some philosophical insights about what makes a good life.
Okay.
We've got these quotes from Aeschylus Wangzi and Henry David Thoreau.
Wow, some pretty big names spanning a lot of history and cultures.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how they all grappled with these really universal human questions.
What stood out to you?
Well, one thing that really struck me was Aeschylus's observation about prosperity.
Okay.
He suggests that this constant pursuit of more can actually become this bottomless pit, leaving us feeling empty even when we've achieved material wealth.
That's so true. It's like you can have everything and still feel like something's missing.
Exactly. And it's a cautionary tale, especially in today's society, where consumerism is everywhere.
Yeah, it feels like we're constantly being told that we need more stuff to be happy.
Right, but these ancient voices, they challenge us to redefine what a good life actually means.
Okay, so how do they do that?
Well, for example, Zhuangzi, he emphasizes inner strength and resilience.
Okay.
He talks about the true man as someone who finds contentment not in external possessions, but in virtue and inner peace.
That's a powerful idea.
It is, and Thoreau, he kind of echoes that sentiment. He encourages us to resist the allure of material success and instead, seek a simpler life, a life that's more connected to nature and to our true selves.
Yeah, those ideas, they really resonate, especially today when it feels like everyone's so stressed out and caught up in the rat race.
It's a good reminder that true fulfillment, it often lies in those intangible things like meaningful relationships, personal growth, and a sense of purpose.
Okay, so let's bring it back to that proposed bill in Massachusetts, the one that would let incarcerated individuals donate organs in exchange for reduced sentences.
Right, that one is causing some serious debate.
It is, because the ethical concerns are so complex.
They are, on one hand, you have the potential to save lives and address this critical shortage of organ donors.
Right.
But then you have these really serious questions about coercion.
Yeah, can someone really give true consent when they're in prison?
Exactly. And some people are worried that this could lead to exploitation.
And a slippery slope where we start to erode ethical principles in the name of expediency.
Right. So the sources present a range of viewpoints. Some people argue that this bill offers a pragmatic solution.
Okay.
We have two pressing problems, and this could help address both.
Okay.
But then you have opponents who are concerned about the potential for abuse and the message that it sends.
Right. It's tough because there are no easy answers.
No, there aren't. And it forces us to confront these really fundamental questions.
Like, what's the purpose of our prison system?
Exactly. Is it about punishment? Is it about rehabilitation? Or is it something else entirely?
And how do we weigh individual rights against the greater good?
It's a balancing act for sure, and it shows how even seemingly straightforward policy proposals can have these really far-reaching ethical and philosophical implications.
Yeah, it's not just about the practicalities, it's about the values we uphold as a society.
Right. Okay, now remember that State Department decision to freeze funding for refugee resettlement programs.
Yeah, what about it?
Well, the sources reveal that there's actually a deeper layer to this story.
Oh, really? What is it?
It seems like this decision is part of a larger trend,
Okay,
the increasing reliance on digital technology
okay.
to manage and control the movement of refugees and asylum seekers.
So things like facial recognition at borders.
Exactly. GPS tracking, even algorithms that predict the likelihood of someone fleeing their country.
Wow, I hadn't really thought about that angle.
It's a new frontier, and it raises some serious concerns.
Yeah, I mean, technology can be a powerful tool, but it can also be used in ways that are discriminatory and even harmful.
Right. The sources point out that we need to be really careful about how these technologies are being developed and deployed.
Especially when it comes to vulnerable populations like refugees,
Exactly. We need to make sure that technology serves humanity.
not the other way around.
Right. Okay, so let's take a step back from the headlines for a minute and explore something a little more abstract.
Okay?
The sources touch upon this fascinating field of epistemology, which is the study of knowledge itself.
Okay.
Philosophers like Simone Weil and Friedrich Nietzsche, they offer these unique perspectives on how we come to understand truth and belief.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but I have to admit the word epistemology, it's a little intimidating.
I know it sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty straightforward.
Okay, so break it down for me.
Imagine you're trying to put together a puzzle.
Okay,
Each piece represents a different source of knowledge, like our senses, our experiences, our reasoning abilities, even our intuition.
okay, I'm following.
So epistemology explores how we fit all those pieces together to form a coherent picture of the world.
So it's like, how do we know what we know?
Exactly.
Okay, so where do Weil and Nietzsche fit into this puzzle?
Well, Simone Weil, she was a French philosopher and mystic,
Okay,
and she believed that some truths, they can't be grasped through reason alone.
okay.
She emphasized the role of faith and intuition in our understanding of the world.
So she's saying that there's a limit to what we can know through logic and science.
Exactly. She argued that sometimes we need to make a leap of faith to trust in something beyond our immediate comprehension.
That makes me think about all those times in life when I've had to go with my gut feeling, even when I couldn't explain why.
And that's where Nietzsche comes in. He was a German philosopher who challenged the very idea of objective truth.
Okay,
He argued that our perceptions are always colored by our individual experiences, values, and biases.
so what might seem like a universal truth to one person could be seen completely differently by someone else.
Exactly. He believed that knowledge is an ongoing process of interpretation.
Okay,
We're constantly constructing meaning from our experiences, but we also need to recognize that our interpretations are limited and subjective.
so it's not just about gathering information, it's also about understanding how our own perspectives shape what we see and believe.
Precisely. And this highlights the importance of dialogue and critical thinking.
Right.
I mean, engaging with different perspectives and questioning our own assumptions, we can refine our understanding of the world and move closer to a more nuanced and insightful view of reality.
That's a really valuable lesson, especially today when we're bombarded with information from all sides.
It's crucial to develop those critical thinking skills so we can sift through the noise and arrive at our own informed conclusions.
Okay, so let's bring it full circle and go back to the topic of opposition research and politics.
Okay,
We talked earlier about the ethical gray areas involved.
right.
So where do we draw the line between legitimate scrutiny of candidates and outright smear tactics?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is because on one hand, voters have a right to know about a candidate's past actions and beliefs.
Right.
But on the other hand, there's a danger of using information to unfairly damage someone's reputation.
Right, especially if it's taken out of context or if it has no bearing on their ability to govern.
Exactly. So the sources highlight a few key factors to consider. One is the intent behind the research.
Right. Is it motivated by a genuine desire to inform the public, or is it just about scoring political points?
And the type of information being uncovered.
Yeah, if it's about a candidate's voting record or policy positions, that seems relevant.
Right, but if it's about their personal life or past mistakes that don't reflect on their qualifications, that feels like crossing a line.
Exactly. And then there's the question of transparency.
Okay.
Should voters know where the information is coming from and who's funding the research?
Or does that kind of disclosure just add to the cynicism and distrust that's already out there?
It's a tough balancing act, and it seems like there's no easy way to eliminate the potential for abuse or manipulation.
No, probably not. But by having these conversations and grappling with the ethical complexities, maybe we can move toward a more responsible and informed approach to political discourse.
I hope so. Okay, so let's wrap up this second part of our deep dive by acknowledging how much ground we've covered.
We have from the ethics of organ donation to the complexities of space mining, from the wisdom of ancient philosophers to the challenges of modern technology. It's been quite a journey.
It has, and we hope that this has sparked your curiosity and challenged your assumptions.
But remember, this is just the beginning.
It is. We encourage you to keep exploring these topics on your own, to seek out diverse viewpoints, and to engage in thoughtful conversations with others.
The pursuit of knowledge is an ongoing process, and it's one that we can all undertake together.
So stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll continue to unpack these complex issues and delve even deeper into the stories that shape our world.
All right, so welcome back to the final part of our deep dive. We've been through a lot, and now it's time to kind of bring everything together.
Sounds good.
So let's pick up where we left off talking about opposition research and politics.
Okay.
That question of where do we draw the line?
Yeah, between legitimate scrutiny and just unethical smear tactics.
Exactly, because voters deserve to know about a candidate's past actions and beliefs.
Of course.
But we also have to be careful about information being used to unfairly damage someone's reputation, especially if it's out of context or has nothing to do with their qualifications.
Right, and the sources point out some key things to consider.
Yeah, like what?
Well, first, the intent behind the research.
Yeah, is it really to inform the public, or is it just to attack the opponent?
Right, and if the goal is to expose some real wrongdoing, something that actually impacts their ability to do the job,
Right.
then maybe it serves a purpose. But if it's just to smear the reputation with irrelevant information,
Right.
that's not okay.
And what about the information itself?
Yeah, if it's about their voting record or their stance on the issues, that seems fair.
Right, but going after their personal life.
Yeah, especially if it's totally unrelated to their ability to govern.
Exactly. That feels more like an invasion of privacy than anything else.
Right. And the media has a big role to play here, too.
Oh, definitely.
Journalists have to vet the information they get from these opposition research firms.
Make sure it's accurate.
Make sure it's relevant, make sure it's presented fairly.
Yeah, it's a tough job, especially with how fast the news cycle moves these days, but it's so important.
Absolutely. We need to maintain public trust.
Exactly. Okay, so before we wrap up this whole deep dive, I want to go back to that story from the blogger.
Oh, yeah, the one about his dad?
Yeah, about his dad saying you weren't even thought of yet.
I love that line.
It's such a simple phrase.
But it makes you think.
It does. It makes you think about where we fit in to the grand scheme of things.
Right. Our lives are just a tiny blip in the grand scale of time and history.
Exactly. But we're still part of this much larger story.
It makes you think about legacy, too.
It does what we leave behind.
The impact we have.
How our actions ripple outwards.
And we may never even know the full extent of it.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. So as we end this deep dive, we want to leave you with this.
Okay.
Think about your own place in this tapestry of human history.
What mark will you leave?
Exactly. What stories will you tell? What impact will you make? How will you contribute to this ongoing narrative of our collective journey?
It's a big question.
It is, but it's worth asking.
Keep asking questions, keep seeking knowledge, keep having these conversations.
Because the world is full of complexities, and it's up to us to try to make sense of it all.
So that's it for today's deep dive.
Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.